Welcome to this Friday edition of Manaaki Live as we head into another weekend, and maybe, just maybe, we think about going down another level when it comes to alert levels. But let's not worry about that. Let's talk about another great story. That's another local story as well. Today I'm joined by the founder and creator of the Chia Sisters. Chia, the superfood, originally grown and still grown in South America, Mexico. There's an Indian type, but it can be grown in Australia as well. But it's a superfood. But this is a story about two sisters building a very, very successful business. And the founder is Chloe Van Dyke, and she joins me right now. Hey, Chloe, how are you?
Kia ora, Stephen, and everyone out there.
Hey, stand up a little bit. Have you got the new Live Local, Buy Local? Yeah, very live, shop, and love local. Nice. It's got very much of a rugby league theme on it. And I believe that Mike Morton, who was retired and the son-in-law of the Mad Butcher, may have had something to do with that. Is that correct?
Yeah, that's correct. So I believe he got a local artist on board, and it's just a way to get out there and say, hey, let's support local businesses right now.
Well, you're the perfect story, because as we go through this, I've discovered you have utilized local business to help your business and other local businesses grow. The story of the Chia Sisters, what does a neuroscientist like yourself suddenly go, oh, I'm bored with this, I don't like lab coats, let's go do something different?
Yeah, that's an excellent question. So yeah, I studied neuroscience at university, and I wouldn't say it got boring. It still interests me greatly. But I ended up living up in Nelson, and neuroscientist jobs in rural New Zealand are hard to come by. And meanwhile, my sister was training as a triathlete representing New Zealand, and my dad was a world champion swimmer for his age group, so best in the world for under 65 in butterfly. And they were looking for something to help fuel them, something that was rich in nutrition, that could keep them going. And I started, looking out there and realizing that there wasn't anything available, because everything that promoted itself as being healthy was talking about what wasn't in it. So no added sugar, no artificial ingredients, no fat. I mean, all of these things are important, but if you want to be healthy and be your best you need nutrition. You need magnesium for good adrenal function and muscle recovery, and iron for energy, and protein as the building blocks of your body. You need all of these things to keep you going. And so I started researching nutrient-rich foods and came across the chia seed, which has a long history of being used in endurance. And it was full of a lot of the nutrients we tend to need more of in our diet, but it needs to be hydrated in order to be absorbed by the body. And so that's where it started as a drink, and we blended it with local Nelson black currants, which are also full of antioxidants and a lot of goodies. And then I took it to the local cafe and supermarket, and then I drove around the country and visited all the supermarket buyers. And I've really just been chasing my tail ever since. I'd love to get back into the neuroscience someday, though.
Yeah. Okay. Let's not sort of shorten the story too much here, because there's more to the story. So, okay, this is like 2012. What were the obstacles you faced as a young business person going, okay, well, I've got this idea, I've done the research, I think I know what I'm doing. Now what?
Yeah, I mean, that's a great question. I had no business experience at all. I didn't know what I was doing. I learned everything along the way. Before Chia, I'd actually tried creating kombucha, and this was before there were any kombuchas on the market. And I went out to the different local authorities and I say, hey, I'm making this yeast bacteria fermented tea. Can you help me?
Yeah, good sell.
Yeah, and they just all thought I was mad. And I had scobies as big as the bathtub. And then it turned into alcohol, and I just didn't know what I was doing. But then went on to trying the chia drink, which I was able to start really slowly. So I didn't have a lot of initial costs. I would do a small batch. I'd sell it, as I said, to just, a few cafes in Nelson, and, local Nelson Fresh Choice was really supportive. And, I was dispatching from my dad's garage, so I didn't have to rent anywhere out. And so my initial startup costs were really low. And then I think about 6 months in, I won a business plan competition, and that gave me a cash injection to get some equipment. And so the business is growing really, just really organically.
Can I just go back? How do you make the drink? I mean, if you make it in your bath, you can make it in your bathtub or bathroom, wherever. How simple
that was a kombucha, not the chia drink. Don't worry, I don't make it in the bath.
For want of telling a good story, I mean, how easy was it to make the drink? How time-consuming was it?
Yeah, so the chia seed needs to be hydrated first, and that's what allows it to swell up and create a gel around itself. That gel is really delicate. It doesn't fit through your standard bottling line. So the first time we did our first batch, we did it through a local brewery. Their lines were too small, and it's fair to say most of the product was on the ceiling and not in the bottle at the end of the day. Yeah, they didn't invite us back. But I guess, through that process, we had to develop our own equipment, which is when some of the expense came in. But by that stage, we, knew we had a product that people wanted.
Did you look to Dad for your help here as a mentor? I noticed Dad had set up the New Zealand Nature Company. He sounds like he was a bit of an entrepreneur. How much did you lean on him for simple advice and practical knowledge as well?
Yeah, so much. He's been so helpful. And I think the thing that he's been most helpful with is, I guess we grew up just believing that we could give something a go and that it was all right to fail. And, I trained as a neuroscientist and now I make juice, and the same goes for my sister, who is a corporate lawyer. And so, we've always had this ability to follow our passion and not be scared about starting something, which is, I think, a boundary to a lot of people starting a business is fear. The fear. And the hardest part is just to start. And once you start, then you start learning and you start adapting to what works.
When and why did you bring Florence into the business?
Well, as I said, Florence is, she's got an amazing background. She worked for the UN in Cambodia on the Khmer Rouge trials as a lawyer, and then she went on to work in a large corporate law firm in Auckland, and she just realised that was not her cup of tea. She wanted to live life and be passionate and, be a 25-year-old, basically, who was doing something that they felt passionate about, and corporate law wasn't her buzz at that time. And so she was able to jump into Chia Sisters, at which point we became Chia Sisters. And, she took us into some export markets. And also, that's when we started really driving some of the values of who we wanted to be as a business.
There's that old saying that goes around, part of it says you shouldn't work with friends or family. So what skill sets make the Chia Sisters, Florence and Chloe, the perfect match at this particular point in time?
It's so, it's so great. Everyone asks us this because people think that I don't know, that there's going to be some great story behind sisters working together, but we work really well together. We've got very different skill sets, which is probably apparent from our backgrounds with the science and the law. And because of that, we complement each other really well. But because we've grown up together, we know what each other's strengths and weaknesses are, and we're able to push each other the perfect amount to get the most out of each other, which is really great. And we can also see when we're pushed too hard, and we can say, hey, get out there, go for a swim, go for a run, come back when you're ready. So I'm really lucky to have her on board, and it's great working with her.
how important is it having that fitness background as part of a key part of the culture of the Chia Sisters management group, you might say?
I think, I think we're really passionate about living life and enjoying life and getting the most out of it. And for us, being able to spend time in the outdoors or going for a run or swim or whatever it is part of that.
Yeah, because we've been talking the last couple of days about resilience and how people like yourself who own businesses and have staff need to be resilient. And what's coming out of it, particularly with Sir John Kirwan yesterday, was being health, having mind fitness, but also being physically healthy. So that must give you a step up because it's natural.
Yeah, it's definitely a part of who we are. It's been something that we can keep to the routine throughout this time. So yeah, I mean, it's all our team and our own personal health has always been important. I mean, it's so obvious that if you're healthy, you're going to work better as well.
Yeah, it's not, but it's not always obvious to a lot of people. Is it something that you subscribe to your staff?
Yeah, I mean, absolutely. We don't tell anyone they have to do anything, obviously, but we've got a WhatsApp group that sends pictures of people up the mountain at 5 o'clock in the morning or something ridiculous that I'd never do. And we kind of share what we're up to, and there's everyone's well, I think it's what attracts people to working with us as well, as being a part of that.
How big is the company? I mean, what sort of staff are you dealing with right now? What
So there's just 7 of us at the moment.
What, seven staff producing your goods?
Yeah. So we've got 3 on the bottling line, and then we've got sort of our admin and dispatch and
7?
Yeah.
Really?
Yeah.
It's such a tiny number. I'm thinking you're bottling all this stuff, you're creating these new products. How does that work?
People think we're bigger than we are, but we're small. Yeah.
That's stunning. I mean, I was seeing you winning awards and food produce awards, and was it you that was named in Forbes 30 under 30, or was it Florence? And
no, I'm over 30. She's breaked in at 29.
Yeah, that wasn't a question about your age. Don't give me the death stare there. The one thing that's really noticeable about the Chia Sisters is being local, using local produce, the Nelson region. But what fascinated me even more was when I read about how, from an export perspective, you then went and got into bed, so to speak, with the proper crisps and also Pick from that beautiful Pick peanut butter. Why was that so important to you?
Well, I mean, Nelson is a fantastic place for collaboration. There's a lot of amazing food producers coming out of this region, and so I mean, working together makes so much sense. And if I have to send a few pallets over to Singapore, that would involve me sending them down to Littleton or up to Auckland, and then them getting shipped to Singapore. But if we have a full container, which we can do, and we work with Picks and Proper, we can send it straight from Nelson. And so it just really makes sense. And we share a distributor at the other end as well. And so whenever we're over there in market, we're able to check on each other's products. I mean, this is what, Nelson is fantastic at it, but New Zealand is good at it too. And it's where just lending a hand, not seeing each other as competition, but seeing each other as a way in which we can all grow together really works.
Yes, I find that stunning, because I've never heard of that before. Do you have anecdotal evidence that happens with other similar businesses around the country, working together to make, and also to share costs, which is the obvious one?
Yeah, I mean, absolutely. I mean, we're doing it all the time. At the moment, we're working with 3 other beverage companies throughout New Zealand to form a distribution collective, because it's too expensive for us to pay reps all individually to go around to every single cafe. And the poor cafe owner who gets, a billion different drinks people walking in the door. This way we can just have one person, they go out, they create an offering all together. We share that cost, and it just makes sense.
Before we get into what's going on right now in our worlds, which is completely different, talk to me about your bottling factory says we're going to go out the back door. You decide to go in and get involved. Did you buy the factory?
Yeah, so the factory, we took over the factory, and that, we lined it with solar panels, which was a cool initiative.
Very cool. Very cool. Very happy about that.
No, that was awesome. I think one of the cool things about it was it enabled us to bring some of our personal philosophies more into our business practice. So, for example, before, when we were getting the drinks contract manufactured, we weren't in control of the staff, but now we were able to raise those staff up to the living wage, which was something we were quite proud of. And we've also gone through the process of becoming zero carbon certified, which has been really interesting as well.
I'm always intrigued. You contract out your bottling, then you decide to go and do it for yourself. In the long term, is it more cost efficient, or is it short term, or is it a long term thing?
We were totally forced into that situation because we had designed all our own bottling equipment, because, as I mentioned earlier, the Chia drink can't be made by anyone. It has to have very specialized equipment. And so we'd permanently installed it in a brewery, which we had our warehouse next door. So we were very much involved in the making of it as well. We just, employed the brewery was creating it for us with their staff. But that brewery went into liquidation with pretty much no notice at all. And our first call was to try and get anybody else that we could to make it for us. Because, as any small business knows, if you've got a certain way of doing something and then some big disaster hits, it's pretty daunting to take on a whole lot of extra costs at that time. So we had to make that decision as to if we moved into that brewery or if we stop business.
So how long did it take, timeline, to go, let's just do this, let's just go, and otherwise we've got no business and all that hard work's gone?
It was probably a roller coaster of about a week. We didn't have much more time than that.
Did you have support from local banks, things like that? Because obviously going and buying a building that has your own equipment and there's the lead, all that sort of stuff. How responsive was the local community and the financial sector for you?
Yeah, so we had a range of different support that we were able to call on. We had family support. We went to the banks for a bank loan. We also, this was a little bit after, but we also became a SheEo recipient, which gave us another, which gave us an interest-free loan. That's the setup that is for women owners.
Nice.
So that was hugely helpful. So we sort of pulled all the strings that we could.
And then along comes COVID-19. So for context in this, who was your main source of income? Who were you supplying? Yeah,
so pre-COVID-19, I'd say a week before COVID-19, we thought we were going to be just fine. We make health drinks. What could possibly go wrong? But 70% of our revenue goes through hospitality, through cafes, through people sitting outside in the sunshine and enjoying a drink. And so come lockdown, that obviously went to zero. And yet we were, we consider ourselves one of the lucky ones, right? Because we were still considered an essential business. We still supplied supermarkets. Although the supermarket sales also, dropped in half because people were looking for they weren't looking for on the go or even healthy options. It was more your staples. It was the flour and the bread and the beans. And so that also received a huge drop off. So that was a shock.
So what do you do?
So we got all the team together.
The Magnificent Seven.
The whole 7 team together, yeah. And we managed to work out the logistics of the factory. So, for example, our production manager was able to bring in his 2 daughters to run either end of the production line. So that means we had one bubble from one home coming in and running production, which was really, really nice. And then there was a few of us that could work from home. And then we had someone on dispatch that was getting all the orders out the door. And so that was all fine. And then we pivoted pretty quickly to online. And that went really, really well. We designed a new website in a week. I think Floss was working, 20 hours a day on that to get that up and going. And we set up free contactless home delivery, and our sales went right back up to about 70% of pre-COVID revenue. So we got such a huge amount of support from people. So that's really kept us going. And then we also looked to our local community to see what other food producers were in the same situation. We created a little box called A Little Box of Sunshine, which has a lot of Nelson products in it. So it's got Sublime Coffee, which is where we usually stop, when we're biking to work. It's got Proper Crisps, Pix Peanut Butter. It's got Little Beauties, a whole bunch of just, beautiful, yum granola, a lot of beautiful products. And we set that up to be able to deliver those throughout that time. So it was a really good gift option. And then we set up the Chia Sisters market, which sells a lot of those products individually as well.
You have to explain to me. So everything stops, you go online, and then suddenly you've got back to 70% of what you're worth when the majority of your business was hospitality. So can you track where was this just individuals buying your product?
Yeah. It was just individuals buying our product, which was really humbling to I think a lot of those people got onto our website because they wanted to support local during that time, and it really lifted our morale, and it kept all of our staff employed, and it's kept us going, which is cool.
Well, it says a hell of a lot about your brand and your brand equity and how strong the brand is. If you can keep your business going, keep the Magnificent Seven employed, but more importantly, it just says a lot about how maybe people were a little bit nervous about their health and felt they needed. And maybe, again, you used the quote, we were one of the lucky ones. I wonder whether you were lucky in the sense too, purely from a health perspective. People worried about their health going, we need something that's going to make us better, or feel that it makes us better.
Yeah, I mean, absolutely. Again, looking after your health during this time, not only to keep your immunity up, but to keep your mental state up, to keep your sense of well-being up, is I think really important to people.
I have to ask you, because we had a little pre-chat about this, but I got to ask you about the hemp protein, because hemp, everybody goes, hemp? So can you just explain to me your hemp smoothie and the benefits of a hemp smoothie?
Yeah, of course. So we make a hemp protein smoothie. I know there's some confusion out there about hemp being related to cannabis, but it's not. It's a completely different plant. It's grown here in New Zealand. It produces a seed, which is a complete source of plant protein. And plant protein is becoming really important to a lot of people. And so we blend up that plant protein with a bunch of beautiful local ingredients. Like we've got one that's full of black currants, boysenberries, strawberries, and another one which is a chocolate flavor, like a cacao, banana, and strawberry. And so it's I guess it's like what your daughter was blending up before this call. It's just a real smoothie with some added plant protein in there.
To make sure that you maintain the integrity of the business, and more importantly, the integrity of the product, how do you test it? Where do you test it? to make sure that, because I noticed in some of your literature, you want to be sustainable. So that's for me, that it says a lot about health, right? That's how I read into it. Where do you test your product and on whom?
Well, okay, so there's two different parts of that. Firstly, we've got the Cawthron Institute right here in Nelson, which is world-class science facilities. So as far as testing the nutrition, we can walk down the road and get that tested, which is fantastic. And then as far as testing the health, this drink started for ourselves, for what we wanted to drink personally and what we have been drinking personally and what we shared with our friends. And it grew completely organically. We've had no budget for marketing at all. And so really it's we just use our consumers to tell the story and pass it on, and that's how we've grown.
Is there an appetite to grow bigger?
I think we're always exploring better ways of doing things. So I'm particularly interested in functional ingredients, so ingredients that are gonna make you healthier or feel a certain way. I'm particularly interested in sustainable ingredients. So is there an ingredient that can support a certain community or that is grown in an environmentally friendly way? So I guess I'm always looking for those sorts of opportunities to add to the range.
We had a little chat before this, and I'm going to ask you this question now because it's a South American product, right, initially. And did I see an Indians, Tama something, Haruan? What can you explain it to me? The
Tarahumara Indians.
That's the one, Tarahumara. Okay, I'll do that like that one. But you bring it in from Australia, and I wonder whether when you talk about growth, have you considered owning the whole process? Growing it here in New Zealand. I mean, you told me it needs dry conditions. You've got to be really careful. And you're living in the perfect place. I think that the sunniest place in New Zealand. Why wouldn't you try and own the whole process?
I don't know if this has ever been about owning a whole process. I would love to be able to support someone to grow chia seeds in New Zealand. I don't know all the logistics of how that would work, but certainly I've got a reasonable amount of buying power to say, hey, look, this is how many chia seeds we use a year, and if you can grow those, then most certainly I will be buying them because I'd love to have a New Zealand source.
No, okay, it's that simple. Where to now? Level 2 potentially is not too far away. How does the business rechange, repivot? I hate that business term, pivot, but I got to use it. I'm talking this one, but I hate it. So how do you recenter now if you go back into level 2? What changes? Do you maintain your online presence? Because that seems to work okay.
Yeah, I certainly think we'll maintain our online presence, and we will be adding to ranges and producing new products that are more suited for online. But we're also going to really try to get back and communicate with the hospitality sector, to all the cafes out there. Like I'm just really feeling for everyone in that space. And I think right now, the cafes that have supported us, they've chosen to support us because we're a local product. They could have chosen an overseas brand. And so I really want to give some of that back to see what I can do to help support them, get them back on their feet, and see how this supporting local can really work.
I got one final thought, because it stuck at me when you said you just do your marketing purely by, word of mouth, organically. Have you taken a look at that? Will you take a look? Okay, we've got a product here we have seen in the worst possible situation, people still love. Now, I know it's easy to say that this situation. Do you think you might change the way you market a little bit and get it out there, whether you use social media, mainstream, or whatever, to go, hey, look at us. We're local. We're a local business using local product in partnership with local businesses.
Yeah, I mean, It's all about just you know, how we communicate the story. I mean, we do social media. We've got a presence there, but you know, it's for the most part, it's just me and my sister saying hello. This is what's going on.
Nothing wrong. Hey, there's nothing wrong with the owners selling the brand, right? I'm just thinking because I get this impression, you know, I couldn't believe you're only a small company of 7. That I don't know whether this is ethically the right question to ask. Whether making money is not such a big deal of it with you guys.
I mean, certainly, you know, we need to make a certain amount of money to be able to survive, like everyone else. But you know, I think, you know, we're just really passionate about making good quality products, about living in a way that's important to us, and also running a business in a way that is in keeping with our own personal philosophies. So one that, you know, is trying to have a positive impact on the environment and the community. And I think that in order for us to grow, all of those things need to grow together.
I don't know if you can see at the bottom of the page, you can see such a show of purpose and values-driven business, so local in a good way, natural, inspiring. I think that says it all, really. And I think
Thanks, Andy.
But it has been an absolute pleasure understanding the Chia Sisters, the Magnificent 7, as Monty has said, because I think that's such a. Just quickly, how many bottles does the Magnificent produce in a week?
I can produce quite a lot, yeah. Won't give you an exact number, but I can produce quite a lot.
So there's that competitive instinct. Let's not let the competitors know. Chloe, thanks so much for sharing your time. And it's just so good to see that you are completely, totally, utterly local.
Thank you.
There you go, Chloe Swarbrick from the Chia Sisters. Very, very cool. Just another inspiring local story. But I just love the idea of how the fact that they just want to support local business. They are feeling for the hospitality industry, yet are humbled by the fact that even when the hospitality industry went, you know, stopped flat, that you at home in New Zealand love their product so much that they still went back to selling 70% or 70% of their market of what it was pre-COVID-19. Remember that, the Chia Sisters and their product, they are truly, truly local Kiwis. I'm Stephen McIver. Have a really safe weekend. Remember, stick to the level 3 rules, because if we keep them going the way we are, then we can potentially get down to level 2. But again, we can't go crazy about that. But next week, there'll be more. Monday, Wednesday, and Friday, more from Manaaki Live. And remember, give back and be kind.